Hello YouTube. Welcome to part 13 of Don't Vote for the Douche or the Turd. In parts 1 through 3 I exposed McCain's flip-flopping. In parts 4 through 6 I exposed Obama's flip-flopping. In parts 6 through 12 I exposed Obama's radical pro-abortion voting record. In all, I revealed one reason why I'm not voting for McCain and two reasons why I'm not voting for Obama. I'll tell you the third reason, but first, I believe an explanation is in order as to how I came to support Barack Obama and realize that the audacity of hope is all audacity and no hope. I, like many of us, was first introduced to Barack Obama while watching a 2004 Democratic National Convention. Most of the speeches I heard were no different from standard stump speeches to rally the party faithful. Though I found myself in agreement with many things it said in those speeches, I found them dry, stale, and uninspiring. But when Barack Obama came up to speak, I felt as if I was listening to a real leader, who would undoubtedly go on to do great things. Or so I thought. It reminded me of a story I'd heard once of a man who, upon hearing the news of Franklin Delano Roosevelt's death, wept uncontrollably in public. When asked how he was related to the president, the man said, "I didn't know him, but he knew me." During that speech, I felt just as that man must have felt while listening to Roosevelt's fireside chats, that Obama was right there in the living room speaking not only to me and my own concerns, but to the concerns of every American. This particular line seems to sum up the speech and its impact on me better than any other. If there's a child on the south side of Chicago who can't read, that matters to me, even if it's not my child. If there's a senior citizen somewhere who can't pay for a prescription and has to choose between medicine and the rent, that makes my life poor, even if it's not my grandmother. If there's an Arab American family being rounded up without the benefit of an attorney or due process, that threatens my civil liberties. It's that fundamental belief, I am my brother's keeper, I am my sister's keeper, that makes this country work. It's what allows us to pursue our individual dreams, yet still come together as an American family. E pluribus unum, out of many, one. I felt as if he was speaking to our greatest values, that we should care not only about ourselves or our families, but to every member of the human family who is suffering. It was then that I started to fall in love with Barack Obama, and fell even more deeply in love with Obama as time passed. When Obama first announced that he was running for president, I had no doubt what my candidate of choice this election season would be. I didn't support Obama, as too many have done, because of some deep-seated white guilt. Or it was my automatic duty as a white man to prove to myself and everyone else that I'm not a racist, vote for what could be the first black man to become president. If that were the case, even with all of his countless sins, including the ones I'm yet to reveal, I would still vote for him. I also didn't support Obama for partisan reasons of being the most likely Democrat to defeat the Republican nominee in November, though I originally planned to vote for the Democratic nominee, whoever it was, until the South Carolina primary, where the Clintons played the race card. After that, my plans changed to vote for Obama, even if it meant writing him in if he didn't become the nominee. And for reasons I will reveal later, my plans changed to writing in none of the above when I got to the polls. I watched the election with a combination of great excitement and great trepidation. Excitement that someone I believed was a great leader who rivaled the likes of Lincoln, FDR, and JFK becoming our next president, and trepidation that the attacks against him, some fair, many not, the racist conspiracy theories about him being a closet Muslim, the effort by the Clinton campaign to ghettoize Obama would tear this country apart and scare millions of people with deep-seated prejudice into voting against Obama. I watched closely every primary, every caucus, and rooted with the enthusiasm of a sports fan for who I thought was my guy. But then something I didn't expect happened, a revelation which would completely change my entire perception of Obama forever. I heard in the news and at first refused to believe it that Obama was the member of a radical, anti-American, anti-Semitic, racist, black separatist church. I heard sermon after sermon, clip after clip of Jeremiah Wright, yet sermons so filled with venom as to even make the hate-laced sermons of Jerry Falwell and Pat Robertson sound reasonable. I at first thought that surely there must be an explanation for this. I tried as best I could to find one, but I didn't find one. It was then that I finally realized that Obama was a fraud. It is with such a realization that I began to notice other things I didn't like about him, things I've already told you about in parts 4 through 12 of this anti-candidate series. That's right, folks. Reason number 3 of why I'm not voting for Obama is the Jeremiah Wright scandal. When the scandal first broke, it appears as if Obama was politically dead, and quite deservedly so. But then Obama performed what is perhaps one of the most cynical and unfortunately effective political movers in American political history. instead of truthfully answering the question of how he could possibly listen and even expose his own daughters to the paranoid rantings of a conspiratorial, racist, separatist lunatic for over 20 years, and not say anything. He changed the subject from his blatant hypocrisy of his public statements and a new kind of politics that goes beyond racial and partisan divisions to the broader conversation of race in America. Don't get me wrong, folks. That's an important conversation that must be had, and some of the things he said in this speech were true, but that still doesn't change the fact that Obama didn't tell the truth about his relationship with Jeremiah Wright. I've decided to give a rebuttal to particular remarks in his speech that made my bullshit alarm really go off. Did I know him to be, on occasion, be a fierce critic of American domestic and foreign policy? Of course. Did I ever hear him make remarks that could be considered controversial while I sat in the church? Yes. I did strongly agree with many of his political views. Absolutely. Just as I'm sure many of you heard remarks from your pastors, priests, or rabbis with which you strongly disagree. Yes, many of us who attend church regularly have at least one thing our pastor, priest, or rabbi has said we disagree with. I disagree with my priest on illegal immigration, but my priest, unlike the elitist, race-baiting politicians, guilty white liberal idiots, and ethnocentric hate groups like La Raza, has, no matter how passionate he's gotten about the issue, doesn't assume that I'm a card-carrying member of the Klan because I'm against amnesty. This is in stark contrast to Jeremiah Wright and others like him who have engaged in nothing short of racial McCarthyism against everyone whom they even slightly disagree with. As such, Reverend Wright's comments were not only wrong but divisive at a time when we need unity. If they're so divisive, then why didn't you leave the church years ago when you first found out that Wright was a lunatic? I confess that if all I knew about Wright was snippets of those sermons that have run in an endless loop on the television sets and YouTube, if Trinity United Church of Christ could point with the characters being peddled by some commentators, there's no doubt that I would react in this much the same way. The truth is that isn't all I know of the man. And I confess that if all I knew about David Duke was the fact that he was the Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, credited with modernizing the Klan and the largest surge in Klan membership in decades, sold racist literature from his legislative office, such as the Turner Diaries and Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf after he was elected to the Louisiana State Legislature, or the fact that he was a longtime Holocaust denier who has espoused outlandish conspiracy theories about Jews, quote, destroying other cultures as a survival mechanism, then I, too, would react in this much the same way. Sarcasm aside, though, I know enough about David Duke to know that he is a bigot, and that Jeremiah Wright is nothing more than David Duke with a tan, and must be viewed and treated as such. That's all for Part 13 of Don't Vote for the Douche or the Turd. Stay tuned for Part 14, where I continue my rebuttal of selected remarks from St. Obama of Chicago's race speech.